I don't really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
A woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
Oh, hey there, ho there, hi there, Eric Butler, UOPod.com looks better than ever. I can't share this story you posted with a tag in me. My screen's coming up blank, but rest assured we are live on Getter, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Twitch. And thank you for anybody listening on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio if you're one of the many seniors on iHeartRadio. Who knows? Maybe there's a big contingent in the United States that I don't know about that's on iHeartRadio. I just know up here in Canada, nobody listens to anything except for our loyal viewers of this show.
Speaking of iHeartRadio, I actually had this revelation, not a revelation, but this thought a couple days ago, because I'm probably one of the few people in this entire country that still listens to the radio. I don't know why. It's like a nostalgia factor, or I don't know.
They usually say.
What's that?
They usually say radio will never go out of style because it's a form of companionship.
Oh, maybe that's it. So if I'm driving to work, I listen to the radio. I listen to the oldie station, and I know that this is going to sound conspiratorial, but I have noticed a lot of commercials that are basically normalizing heart issues now.
Yes.
Now, maybe it's because I'm listening to the oldie station and they think I'm older, like it's an older audience that will be listening to it. But they are running ads about if you're there. I can't memorize them, obviously, but I've heard several different commercials about heart issues and what, how to combat the heart issues that you might be dealing with. And I don't know if it's been like that the entire time and I just wasn't listening to the radio, or if they are doing this in an attempt to make it seem like everybody's heart is just starting to fail. Because if you watch my story on Instagram right now, you'll see like 5 different reasons why your heart is, why you're having heart trouble and why you might have a stroke. Low calorie ice cream, smoking weed, which smoking weed might do it. I don't know. Maybe smoking weed does give you heart problems. I'm sure, cigarettes and unhealthy stuff like that can. But I encourage you. Instagram is really throttling me right now, and they are really not friendly to what I'm posting right now, because it's true.
Because you're big.
Not good. Because I'm.
Did you see the clip where Tucker Carlson said that nicotine frees your mind?
I did not see it, but I heard about it.
Very strange.
And I know that he likes, he was at wasn't Tucker at like a funeral for a Hell's Angel or something weird like that? One of these motorcycle gangsters, and he basically applauded them for still smoking cigarettes. Like, I don't know, some sort of, again, nostalgia factor. Like, because Tucker notoriously chews, right? You see him out and about and he has like a can of chew in his pocket.
Dip in?
Yeah. So he was like applauding the old school bikers for continuing to smoke cigarettes in this world of vape pens, I suppose.
I don't know if cigarettes or nicotine frees your mind. It gives you a head rush, but maybe we should be careful. Today's episode is not immediately demonetized on YouTube. Thanks to anybody watching there. That's a nice landmark for us. Jimmy Kimmel apparently has a problem with Aaron Rodgers. Now, we'll play the clip in a second. Aaron Rodgers wants to see the Epstein client list. Now, for some reason, Aaron Rodgers reveals a lot of his, political thoughts on a football podcast, the Pat McAfee podcast, and I believe that's where he did it. But the bigger part here is, why does Jimmy Kimmel have a problem with this? So let's go ahead and see what he had to say.
Wait, hang on. Before you play it, I'm sorry. Are we also noticing that a lot of these football players are doing podcasts now? Because wasn't Jeffree Star on a football players podcast talking about the pronoun mafia? Do you remember that?
I I don't.
What's going on with the
Okay,
football
was that on a
players?
football? Maybe
Yeah.
they're just figuring out there's another source of $1 million they can make per year. But recently, I was watching something on Barstool Sports because I like Dave Portnoy and a couple other guys. Very limited amount of people I like on there. Tommy Smokes, shout out Tommy Smokes, retweeting me a few times. And they have these football players on, and they're so arrogant because they're used to being the most important guy in the room in a lot of rooms, and they come into this Barstool like retreat that they're having for the Super Bowl, and they don't follow any of the rules. They tell everybody they have to shut up because they're doing a podcast. They said Dave Portnoy needs to be quiet, and it's like, if you don't like it there, you can just leave. Like, you'll be fine. But they've just all come across very arrogant. The hockey guys are very arrogant. Now, these are big podcasts they have, like huge ones. One's called Spittin' Chicklets, is a hockey one that's really popular. One of the guys has his own alcohol brand. You ever heard of the alcohol called Pink Whitney? It's like a
No.
pink lemonade vodka, but that's from a hockey player. And these guys are very arrogant. I don't listen to any of those athletes' podcasts. Now, Pat McAfee's always been an interesting guy, so that's probably why he is a very popular one. And it was after he retired. But Aaron Rodgers goes on there, and he talks about this stuff just like he talked about his jab status and everything with Joe Rogan. So let's see what this is about, Jimmy.
Talk has the tinfoil hatters going wild, including Green Bay whackpacker Aaron Rodgers, who offered this hot take on the Pat McAfee show.
I believe that this has been going on for a long time. Interesting timing on everything. There's a lot of other things going on in the world. Did you hear about the Epstein client list about to be released too?
What's that? What are you talking about?
There's some files that have some names on it that might be getting released pretty soon.
Oh.
Might be time to revisit that concussion protocol, Aaron.
So that's obviously, I'll state the obvious things, is why would you be opposed to an elitist, trafficking list of people coming out, Jimmy Kimmel? It's not a conspiracy. I mean, he went to jail and died by however you want to think that it happened. That's besides the point. But like, this stuff all happened. He's like, oh, it's conspiracy. And it's also okay to make fun of people's concussions. And it's like, we all know why they want to make fun of Aaron Rodgers. Even if you excuse the Epstein stuff, which is insane, it's because he didn't, and we're in the first few minutes here, so I want to be careful not to get demonetized immediately, but it's because he didn't take it, because he was It's because he was allergic to one of the ingredients. The J&J one had just got pulled, and he explained all this on Rogan, that he was allergic to one of the ingredients in the main one, in the Pfizer one. So he took everything Joe Rogan suggested, which were, obviously got him over it in 3 days, the Rona, and then he was fine. And then they tried to be like, he lied about it. He didn't lie. He told his whole team. He told his management. He told his ownership. He told the league. They all said it was okay, and they still called him a liar. And the reason is because he recovered so quickly. Or sorry, he didn't take it, and he didn't need to take it. He didn't get sick. That's why they need to take him down, because he didn't go through the conventional method, and you have to take him down, just like Joe Rogan, if they don't go through the profiteering method. This is why Jimmy Kimmel has to come out on behalf of his overlords at ABC and Disney, who obviously take lots of money from the powers that be, judging by how he speaks all the time. And his job is to smear him as a conspiracy theorist because an Epstein list is coming out. Like, where's the conspiracy there?
Look, obviously, again, okay, I guess I'm going to state the obvious too. We live in the backwards, bizarro clown world where up is down, left is right, man is woman.
True.
So, of course, the conspiracy is what they're trying to cover up. So we know the guy went to jail. He died in jail. His wife or girlfriend or whatever, that weird mistress lady, whatever. What do you call? Oh, madam, I should say. She's in jail now. She's like she's like filing some sort of appeal or something, and she's trying to get out. And this is all, it's all absolutely pathetic. Now, of course, they're going to go after him. This is kind of similar to what we saw with Kanye. If you do one thing, they're going to come after you forever. right? So if he went against the narrative with the pharmaceuticals, so now he's on the radar and they're going to come after him forever. And I've said this before, but I always find it very strange that how him and old blackface Kimmel, we all remember Karl Malone Kimmel, right, with doing entire black body, and his girlfriend, his wife at the time, doing blackface too, and nobody really cares. They don't get canceled. He's still on TV every single night. But I always found it strange that him and Adam Carolla just basically took completely different paths, right? Like something happened, there was a fork in the road, and Carolla basically went, whatever, Daily Wire, PragerU, The Blaze, kind of like moderately based, as the kids say, route. And then Kimmel just went, full bore, as if either there's going to be a giant brown bag with a dollar sign on it passed to him every single night, or they have some kind of actual dirt on him. Because look, he could just stay out of it, right? He doesn't have to go on stage and start bashing a guy on a deep cut podcast. Which one of his staff members was sifting through NFL podcasts just to pull that and make a joke out of Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, you could have just stayed out of it and actually written comedy jokes for your audience, but of course not. You're going to turn it into a political hit job because Aaron Rodgers, who's basically just a regular, I don't know, what is he, like 40 now? Like he's just he's a
30,
dude,
yeah,
bro.
40.
Yeah, he's just a dude, bro, who's good at throwing a football. Did he retire yet? I don't even know.
Nope.
Is he retired? No, he's still playing. Okay, it's crazy how these football guys. I mean, Tom Brady is 42, and football takes a toll. I don't know how you play so long, but anyways, he went out of his way to do this at the behest of, like you said, Disney, ABC, when he could have just ignored it, right? Why did you have to do that? Because there's still some people out there, I guess. Like, do you think if we got a shot of the crowd in that audience, they're all still wearing a mask, right? Because they're all still completely brainwashed, and they're still they're still jumping through the hoops. They're still trying to play whack-a-mole out there. They're still eating every little piece of establishment droppings that they throw at them, and it's pathetic. So, and I think I posed this question to you on Instagram. Which is worse? Is Kimmel doing this constantly, and then he goes on the air and cries and he plays the part? Is he worse than Stephen Colbert, who does a complete song and dance? We all remember that, right? And then what was the other one? The other extreme. There was Colbert with the
Corden, James Corden.
No, not
Fat
James
British
Corden.
guy.
I don't know anything. I mean, I know who you're talking about, but no. So there was
Seth Meyers.
No. Hang on. There was Colbert and the pharmaceutical dance number, and then there was another one that was super cringe. Remember a couple weeks or maybe a month or two ago when you kept interjecting it into the episode? I forget who that
Jimmy
was.
Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon. So what did he do that time? It was another
XBB.1.5.
Yes. Yeah. How could I forget? So what's actually worse? I think this Epstein stuff might actually be worse because everybody can argue about the pharmaceuticals, no problem. But I think what was supposed to happen was everybody was supposed to agree that this Epstein guy was just, not to put it nicely, not liking Jeffrey Epstein was never supposed to be a conservative talking point, right? A guy who notoriously, look, I'm not going to get into the details of what he did. Everybody knows, but that should have been something that everybody could have agreed on. But somehow this man goes out of his way to pretend that Aaron Rodgers is a whack job because he wants to see the list. And last thing here, everybody knows, just as well as I know, just as well as Aaron Rodgers should know, and Kimmel obviously knows and is happy about, we're never going to see that. I see people with their status, their new little Twitter status things on Instagram. Show us the list. Where's the list? It's not going to happen. Don't hold your breath. Like, do you think for once they're going to put somebody they hate on there? It's going to be Donald Trump and Kanye West are on the list, and that's it. And everything else is going to be redacted. That's what's going to happen.
Well, what I think happened with Kimmel and Carolla back in the day, I used to like them both. I think they did the Man Show together. That was a time, but I think Kimmel just got this opportunity, and the bag with the dollar sign reminds me of The Simpsons. Here's your bag with dollar sign. And he gets his own show, and Carolla's notoriously, face for radio, as they say, and you can only give one guy a talk show. Carolla has been involved with radio for a long time, and he had a successful radio show. He also had a radio show with Dr. Drew. And so I think when you get the opportunity to do a talk show, a late night talk show, a lot of comedians back then would have taken it. I mean, Fox had flirted with one, I believe, for Conan O'Brien before he took the Tonight Show, and then, went back and went to TBS and everything. Fox has had talk shows. So I think for a really long time, since the 60s, comedians have thought that having a late night talk show would be the best thing ever. You get paid tens of millions of dollars, and you're interviewing, interesting people all the time, and you're top of the food chain. That's obviously changed in the last 15 years or so. But when Jimmy Kimmel got his show, it was still 2007, 2008, I want to say. And, it still had, the curtain was still down in front of the eyes of America as to what this stuff is. But then, of course, as things happen, Jimmy Kimmel ends up getting talking points from Chuck Schumer about stuff during Trump, and Kimmel hates Trump more than anybody hates Trump for some reason. And all these things start snowballing, and it basically becomes not about comedy. And if you look on your YouTube feed, maybe you're not signed in even, the things that they suggest you for news, half of them are from talk shows. Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, and Jimmy Kimmel all talking about political stuff or pharmaceutical stuff. And is this, on one hand, it's not funny. It's not even funny politically. I mean, this is the funniest political podcast there is, besides maybe, who's the guy? Who's the big fat guy that we all know and love? Who am I talking about?
I don't know.
Tim Dillon. Tim Dillon might be the funniest, basically political podcast there is, of all time. But we're right up there. We're a close second, especially on Getter, #1 podcast on Getter, by the way. Check the numbers.
And does this? I'm sorry. Continue.
I was just gonna say, and these people, they're not funny anymore, and they're not very well informed in politics, so they're just talking mouthpiece because they can't get people to watch these other things anymore. They can't get people to watch CNN anymore. Don Lemon is your most entertaining factor on CNN. MSNBC is completely off the charts, and you'll notice that the Democrats, who don't even really align with MSNBC for the most part, they only go on there now because they're the only people who are crazy enough to agree with their bad ideas. And then you've got you've got left-wing sources as well that don't get as much traffic. Besides you can even say, I don't know how well the Young Turks do, but comparatively to Fox News, for example, they're not up there. So the only people that still get these numbers have these built-in audiences, from Jimmy Fallon's singing numbers. James Corden, when he was on, he had this carpool karaoke stuff, and Jimmy Kimmel doesn't really have that thing, but they have these built-in audiences from legacy media, late night, and people are still watching that there, but they still get a couple million views per hot video on YouTube, and these are the people they have to turn to. So it doesn't matter about comedy at all. They're just literally changing where the filtering goes down. Okay, it used to be CNN maybe, and it used to be Stephen Colbert when he was on Jon Stewart or something like that. Maybe it used to be the Young Turks, whoever it used to be that was getting these talking points. They're sending them right to Jimmy Kimmel now. They're sending them right to Seth Meyers and Stephen Colbert now. They're sending them, to celebrity things now instead, because people aren't watching CNN. And when you look at, I was watching Kevin O'Leary on CNN this morning, the show CNN this morning, Don Lemon's show. He's back now. And Kevin O'Leary was just talking about how mostly New York City, New Jersey, California, they're not investable anymore because of their tax rates. And Don Lemon was the only one willing to listen to him without saying, oh, it depends who you ask. It depends on the politician, blah, blah. And he's saying it doesn't matter who the politician is. He was actually saying he respects people like Elizabeth Warren, which I don't, because of how hard being a politician is. And they wouldn't even listen to him. They would say, oh, it depends who it is. It depends who you're talking to and what you're talking about. And he says, don't kill the messenger. And I'm just presenting you the fact. But people don't want to watch CNN for this stuff anymore because of that, because the two of the three hosts on there can't even listen to basic facts because it's coming from somebody who's criticizing something they believe in. So they have to go with an audience that doesn't actually think about the fact that they're being fed political messages. They just think this is a comedy show. This is what's top of mind for everybody. And this is how it is. And this isn't coming from a political angle at all. Meanwhile, it's carefully meticulous. And the last thing I'll say here, to steal an Eric line of last point here, is Bill Maher was talking the other day about how he gets every single year he talks about, or he looks at resumes basically for new comedy writers on his show, and he says every single one of them has the same point of view because they act like this is the one point of view, and it's really tough to find comedy writers when they all think like they're all like progressive, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, you said one thing there. Yeah, they're all zombie bots, right? Like the audience, they can't create an independent thought. They can't critically think about what they're being fed. But it's also for these establishment people, just the fact that they say something makes it true, right? So if one of these people puts out a talking point, just the fact that they said it, that is enough to make it true. You know what I mean? So it will never get questioned because, well, if CNN talking head. Now, okay, Don Lemon's, I guess, a little bit of a different case because they got really mad at him because he said Nikki Haley was past her prime, but they didn't get mad at Wajahat Ali for saying that Nikki Haley was a white supremacist, basically, right? So I guess the point I'm trying to make is just by the fact that one of these establishment hacks says something, that is enough for it to be considered true and for you to have to accept it. It gets no questioning. We do not have to explain it. Ask Katie Hobbs, right? She doesn't have to explain her platform positions because you're going to wear it either way. It doesn't matter. We're in control. And to bring it full circle, this whole comedy thing, you see last week's episode with Woody Harrelson, right? That is you saw the meltdown. You saw the media meltdown. 6, 8 mainstream media publications. Oh, Woody Harrelson's pushing conspiracy theory. Debunked. Oh, how cringe. Oh, big yikes. Right? Because he said one thing, and I don't know too much about Woody Harrelson, but he said one thing that was clearly a joke, but it resonated and it had a kernel, at least, of truth, and they can't have that. So that's why you get all of these weird zombie fake comedy bots saying the exact same thing, spitting it at you because, like you said, they're getting their talking points from on high somewhere. Whoever's writing that Democrat playbook that makes California and New York do the same thing every single week, it's the same people. They get their talking points, they do it, and then Woody Harrelson goes off the rails and makes one joke, and he becomes the enemy, right? Like, that's the death of comedy. Like you said, this guy's looking at comedy resumes and it's not funny because nobody has an interesting point of view. Nobody's looking at anything from a different perspective because either they have truly been brainwashed and can't do it, or they are scared. And either way works for the establishment, right? So if their brains really can't comprehend why more than half of this stuff doesn't make sense, or they know it doesn't make sense, but they have to toe the line because they're genuinely afraid, scared into submission. Both situations, boom, work for the establishment. Doesn't matter to them as long as you obey, right? And shout out Chris Rock, I guess. If I have time, I'll watch the thing. But apparently he took shots at wokeness or something. So we'll see if that's actually true and if he's still a comedian, even though he 100% doesn't need to be. But look, these guys could probably all quit after 5 or 6 years, but they keep going because I don't know, they need the attention, they need the money. I don't know what it is, but he doesn't have to do it. He continues to do it, and maybe I'll watch it. I don't know.
Maybe you will. Okay, let's get to Russell Brand was on Bill Maher triggering some guy about him saying MSNBC is not really trustworthy. And again, MSNBC is getting all the top politicians these days, not because there's an overwhelming amount of people on MSNBC. It's just that they trust them more to toe the line, somehow more than CNN, who's gone in this slightly different direction of we can't kiss the ass of everything Joe Biden says anymore because all of our people who did that tanked. Like they didn't want to fire people at first. Go ahead.
Well, I'm genuinely curious. Do you believe that these people, that these talking heads or even these comedians, do you think that they actually believe? They're adults. They can't actually believe this stuff. They just know that they're playing the part, right? So in your opinion, do you think they actually believe it, or is it just an act?
MSNBC especially, I don't think they believe it. You look at people like Joy Reid, who has said racist things before, I take that back. I believe it was anti-gay thing she said, and she said somebody must have hacked me. That wasn't me. So she's race hustling. Joe Scarborough has just gotten he goes where the wind goes. He claims to be one of those conservatives like Ana Navarro. So MSNBC specifically, I don't think they believe it. I think
Ana Navarro, though.
I think they're a cult of personality over at MSNBC. I think they go where the wind blows, and they're just so anti-Trump that they're going to say whatever they can to get these ratings. They're meant to be. Their purpose is to be, a little bit extreme. Whereas CNN, I think they're doing great journalism, and I think that they're exposing the powers that be. And I think that, like, if we talk about people like Chris Cuomo and Brian Stelter, who aren't there anymore, who got fired because they suck, I think that they thought that they're great journalists, and whether they actually believe everything they're saying, I'd wager that Brian Stelter thinks that something people being mean is harmful. I wager that Chris Cuomo is such a dumbass that he thinks that he's doing a great job, and he's really helping the people when he's talking to them.
But now we can talk just really quick before you play the clip. I swear, super quick. Joe Scarborough, Joe and Mika, right? That's their morning Joe, correct? Now, I will say he at one point or another has said something that could be considered mildly conservative. Fair enough. He's obviously an establishment shill hack loser, but he has said some things that you could consider, establishment conservative, like, George W. Bush type conservative. But what has Ana Navarro what has she ever done or said that is even remote? Like, she just said one day, I'm a Republican, and then she's
registered as Republican.
Yeah, but what point has she ever conveyed that was even remotely not the establishment left-wing talking point in anything?
Nothing. She's a person that obviously somebody said, we will get it. You're mildly involved in politics, register as a Republican, and we'll say that you're a Republican, and we'll have you on our shows. I mean, it's a pretty easy job, frankly. I'm Republican. I'm Latina. Therefore, I am checking 2 boxes off for you that you can say you have somebody on. It's like the person on the 5 who's supposed to be left wing, but they're not really. They're just extremely they're a person who's been in politics for a long time, so they're willing to play the game. The woman they have on now that used to be on CNN is the most left-wing they've ever had, but she's still not even hardcore left-wing. She just wants to work for the Democrats, and probably has and does, and therefore will say the talking points. Because the people that they always have, remember Juan Williams, they're pretty much usually normal people. It's just that they get paid from a certain angle, and they just defend literally the policies and the talking points of the party. Other than that, you can tell that they're reasonable people. That's what I think. Did you say Caitlin Collins? Yeah, she sucks. She sucks bad. But Russell Brand on Bill Maher here.
John, I've not known you long, but I love you already. But I have to say that it's disingenuous to claim that the biases that are exhibited on Fox News are any different from the biases exhibited on MSNBC. It's difficult to suggest that these corporations operate as anything other than mouthpieces for their affiliate owners in BlackRock and Vanguard. and unless we start to embrace, and also, mate, just spiritually, if I may use that word in your great country, we have to take responsibility for our own perspectives. I've been on that MSNBC, mate. It was propagandist nutcrackery on there. I went on a show called Morning Joe. It was absurd the way they carried on.
Good Morning Joe. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It wasn't morning. There was no one called Joe there. No one could concentrate. They didn't understand the basic tenets of journalism. No one was willing to stick up for genuine American heroes like Edward Snowden. No one was willing to talk about Julian Assange and what he's suffered trying to bring real journalism to the American people. And I think to sit within The castle of MSNBC throwing rocks at Fox News is ludicrous.
My friend,
make MSNBC better. Make MSNBC great again.
My friend, I would. The moment
fight them on a territory you can win on, Joe.
Russell, darling, the moment that you give me a specific example. An actual example.
Okay, I'll give you one.
Just wait.
Wait.
Just
we need a specific example.
How about let me tell you what the specific I'd like to hear of. I'd like to hear a specific example, a provable specific example of an MSNBC correspondent or anchor being on television saying something they knew was false and we're saying behind the scenes to people, I'm about to go out and we know that the election wasn't stolen or something equivalent. But I will go out on television and say the opposite. I will lie.
When's my answer?
Just give me the specific example.
I understand the basic point.
Give me a specific example.
All right.
I'm with you. I think it's a false equivalency, Russell.
It's not. That's your own bias. It's not about bias. It's a false equivalency because you don't actually know anything about any of these organizations you're talking about. Even on MSNBC ones. Big fucking deal.
My darling, it was more than enough.
You can't come up with such a carry. You have a single actual fact.
Do you want an example? Do you want an example?
And unfortunately, it cuts off there. You don't know anything about these organizations except he does a podcast every single week. I get the alert on my phone for some reason from Rumble because Rumble is like that for some reason. He does a podcast every single week talking about the news, about CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, all these news companies. You don't know anything about it. He just says this to defend MSNBC, which of course, Rachel Maddow, the taxes, they were going to be huge. Do they know that they're lying? How are you going to prove that? How are you going to prove that somebody...
And that's the catch. That's exactly the catch. That was the point. Well, no, that was just the point that I was going to make is like he said, give me an example of one of these MSNBC hosts saying something they knew was a lie. And that's the catch. Because all you can say is, I didn't know it was wrong at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's this guy. I thought I saw a clip though where he does give the examples where it goes a little like I didn't see that beginning part. I saw the end part where he actually did give the example. And I forgot what it was now, but we all know they completely lie, or they do what you could call technically the truth. Where it's the framing is really weird. Like they'll do Donald Trump said on Tuesday that he was gonna make you know what I mean? They'll throw in like one qualifier, so then that makes it untrue. So it makes the entire statement. It's very weird. It's very manipulative. I can't think of a perfect example right now, so I'm glad I'm not up there with that weird MSNBC guy because I don't have an example at the moment. But I mean, it's so obvious. Like we're too eyeball deep in it. You can't even. I mean, every single time we look at one of these stories, it's always taken with a grain of salt. When is the last time you looked at any story from any outlet and just been like, oh yeah, they've done a perfect job and like I fully trust them? There's a couple outlets that are better than others, obviously, but everything has been tainted. Every single thing. It's all a game. It's all manipulation. It's all propaganda. There's no way for you to actually know what's going on unless you spend hours a week in this stuff trying to decipher, comparing articles and all sorts of things, and you still don't know. And that's because these journalists, these corporate media journalists, are pretending, just like the politicians do, that they're not humans, right? And that's why everything's so corrupt. They're pretending like, well, we're journalists and we stand up for the truth. No, you don't. You have a bias. You're a human being, just like the politicians, right? Like, this is public service. We just want to help the people until, you get some backdoor deal to cut with some weird pharmaceutical company. And then all of your weird, your pretend morals, I should say, just get thrown out the window. So there's no possible way. I don't know if that's just like a black pill thing, but there's no way out of this, bro. Like and especially in a place like New York or California, the political regime, it's just rotten from the inside out. There's no fixing it. I'm sure you guys in Canada probably are. It's over. We're just riding it out to the end now, bro. There's no Donald Trump could come in. Nothing's going to change. It's not going to matter.
I tried to find Trump's CPAC speech for like 20 minutes yesterday on YouTube, and they just won't show it. There's like fake, like YouTube showing and pushing to the top a fake CNN channel called like CNN Live-18 that my friend said used to be called India Live 18 or something like that. They just didn't want, all they would show is people analyzing the speech. They just didn't want you to actually see what Trump actually said. It was crazy. It was some of the worst censorship I've seen, and we've seen a lot. Some of the worst I've seen in a long time. And
well, I mean, you got to remember.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they took the sitting president off of social media, right? Like, so of course they don't want, because I mean that's it. They wiped him clean off Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything, YouTube, because of January 6th. So of course, like they don't want that message getting out, even though it's not. No, obviously nothing he says is extreme. They're not worried about the extreme nature of it. They're going to tell you, well, he's a violent extremist and he's going to, push conspiracies and lies. But really, his ideas just might not be that bad, and they don't want you to hear. That's why I get censored on Instagram. If I make a post about them legalizing sex work in New York, and then it turns out that most of the sex workers are illegal transformers, then they say, no, we don't want that message. We don't want that getting out. So they still have their hand on the scale, and we'll all go down swinging. I certainly will, but the point is moot. The powers is too strong, bro. Maybe that sounds really dark, but there's no way out of this, bro.
No Way Out by Puff Daddy and the Family. We're on opposite sides there. UOPod.com has a new front-facing page. You can check it out. Please subscribe on YouTube, to our Instagram pages, Twitter, and of course, on Getter. And you can also listen on all streaming podcasts platforms, all the ones you've ever listened to anything on, which are Apple, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Please leave us a review. Please share everything. Please share this on Parler. Please share this on Twitter and YouTube. Help us grow. We're growing as we speak. I can see it. And we're going to be having special content coming up in the coming weeks. Eric is coming to Canada, and he's afraid of the snow. I sent him a video the other night, and he's really afraid. I had to shovel a lot yesterday. So please, if you want to sign up for the Patreon, that will be having extra content as soon as he gets here. And now we're going to move on to a story about, how hard it is to be an equestrian who's black in Canada. This is from the New York Times, and they're banking, Eric, on people just not knowing about anything here in Ontario,
Did you pay for
Canada.
this? Did you get behind the paywall?
No, it's just, I guess, when you do a private browser every once in a while, it'll allow you to look at stuff. Pay for the New York Times. Unbelievable. The only thing I'd pay for, Eric Butler of TatumReport.com, is signing up for Blaze Media, where you can read my articles every single day. And, of course, this podcast. Black equestrians want to be safe, but they can't find helmets. For black riders, black is capitalized, of course, by the Associated Press and Canadian press.
Are they doing it for white, too?
I don't think so. For black riders with natural hair, which of course doesn't make any sense, finding a helmet that fits can be virtually impossible. Some are trying to raise awareness of the problem, but manufacturers say it's not a simple fix. So if you want to tell me that natural hair is braids, then you are a liar. Braiding your hair is not its natural state. If you're going to say an afro is natural hair or curly hair of some kind is natural hair, yes, 100%. But on one hand, braiding is not a natural thing, that your hair just doesn't grow into braids. But telling people that they're racist for not having a helmet that fits your hair doesn't make any sense at all. Number one, why don't you create your own company if there's such a demand for it? Or you're saying that this company has to customly make helmets that fit a small percentage of people, or else they would. Maybe there's a huge gap in the market and you could take advantage of it. Otherwise, you're just being an idiot. So this person, of course, it's written by a white lady named McKenna Oxenden, unless her, black and white picture. No, that's a white lady. Am I fair to say that's not a black woman?
That's
named McKenna Oxenden.
Yeah, that's definitely a white woman. But
thank you. Just need to check with you first there. Chanel Robbins has been riding horses for a few years, and we don't even need to know much about this because she's in Ontario. She's not far from where I'm from, and I can tell you this is all a lie right up front. Chanel Robbins has been riding horses most of her life, ever since her grandmother traded a cow for their family's farm in Ontario. Okay, point number one, Eric. if you have a farm in Ontario, Canada, you're not poor. That's so much land that if you wanted to, you could sell it for tens of millions of dollars right now. So number one, you are at least by way of your net worth about the land you own, owning a farm where she lives in Ontario, you are not poor. So right away, she's not underprivileged at all. Galloping through the fields on her pony, and this is, of course, a Seinfeld reference you'll get, Eric. I had the pony. We had a pony. Star offered an escape from thoughts that weighed on her, that she didn't have a relationship with her biological parents, for instance, or that she was the only black girl in the neighborhood aside from her sister. About 8 years ago, she connected with her father, a native of Jamaica. This has nothing to do with anything about helmets. Black equestrians have long felt virtually invisible in a sport that remains overwhelmingly white. For those with natural
there
hair,
it is, lowercase w, capital
there it
B.
is. Yes, that's the beginning of a sentence, but we know they used it with a capital earlier. And right here it is again, which for many is a declaration of pride and black identity. Eric, is not styling your hair at all. Do you take pride in your black identity if you don't style your hair?
Do you take pride? Wait, what? Do you take pride in your identity by not styling your hair?
Yeah, that if your hair is in its natural state, which is for many a declaration of pride and black identity, is that? Do you agree?
God, yeah, no. This is pathetic. Look,
let's
okay.
Continue.
Okay.
Finding a helmet that fits properly can be nearly impossible, creating yet another barrier to full inclusion. You know where else you can't have a helmet that fits properly? If you have like if you're a ginger white guy with an afro, hockey. But they still do it. They still cram it in there. Football players all the time have dreadlocks. Ricky Williams and Al Harris were guys I remember back in the day. But now tons of players have dreadlocks underneath their helmet. It's probably not most comfortable, but they jam it in there.
I always thought that was weird because then it could get pulled too, right? Like
exactly.
You don't want that.
And you're allowed to tackle somebody by their long hair in the NFL. You're allowed to. Some people get dreads pulled out. It's another barrier for inclusion because only black people can have long hair. Some now are lobbying for change, mindful that horseback riding is among the leading causes of sports-related traumatic brain injury. The helmet companies say there isn't a simple fix. So here she is looking so poor. She's so poor in her stable with a pony.
Well,
and we'll get to that. We'll get to
in their defense, though.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I'm going to defend the New York Times. I defended Don Lemon a couple of weeks ago, but in their defense, they never said she was poor. You kind of put that on there, right? Like
I know,
they didn't
but
say she was poor.
The idea is that they've set it up that she is somehow oppressed in some way because her helmet isn't fitting for her and it's non-inclusive. And the idea that a person in Ontario whose family owns a farm and is an equestrian, you have no problems in your life. Yes, you can have personal problems. She didn't have a relationship with her father. A white kid, a black kid, whoever it is, they can have personal problems in their life. But to say that she's particularly oppressed because helmets don't fit her, this is she could afford in Alliston, Ontario, where she is from, where a 3-4 bedroom house goes for $1.2 million, because I checked this the other day. Your life is fine. You can afford to have a custom helmet made for you. If you think that it's this grave injustice, if I play a sport, if I play hockey, which I didn't because I was actually poor growing up, couldn't afford to play hockey. If I played hockey and I needed custom goggles because my vision isn't good to play, or a custom visor that has a prescription in it, and I'm a 13-year-old, or in this case, an older kid, I don't know how old she is, but let's say 20, you can afford to have this custom made for you. I could afford to have this custom visor made for me for $400 or $500 because I'm a rich kid from Ontario whose family owns a farm and can afford to be a horseback rider. It's this insane thing. This isn't, a situation where we're talking about basketball or soccer, where lots of poor people all around the world are playing this sport. The barrier to entry for equestrian in Ontario is being a rich kid. And just like it is for hockey, you might be benefiting from some program for equipment or something, but our family owns a farm, Eric. I want to express this very, very much so. that there is no like woe is me when you're owning a farm in Alliston, Ontario, where your house is worth millions of dollars, your land is worth tens of millions of dollars, and you're a horseback rider.
Yes.
So around 2015, when she started teaching riding lessons, so she's been able to ride horses enough to where she's a riding teacher, and people are rich parents are paying her to teach their daughters how to ride horses. She found herself having to tell children they couldn't ride if there was no helmet that fit properly, which you would have to do with everything. In 2021, she started a hashtag saddle up helmet on to call attention to the problem. Just design it. And the person they're talking about here is named Miss Gooch, I'd like to point out, which is a hilarious name. Miss Gooch, everybody. People are different. Hair is different. This just enrages me, Eric, because houses are so expensive here. So much so that I wish it was very easy to move to the United States. And we have a person complaining that their helmet doesn't fit when they're in one of the richest places in the country, owning horses, teaching horseback riding, owning a farm, all this stuff. And, they get an article in the New York Times about them, about woe is me. You know what I mean?
Yes, because as we know, the victimhood is currency. They need something to be a victim of. Like you can't just say, nobody in this weird establishment, mainstream media cult, I guess, nobody there is ever going to say, you know what, I just made some bad decisions, and nobody's ever going to be truthful there. Okay, let me back up. Nobody's ever going to say, you know what, I've actually had it pretty good, and I made a couple bad decisions, and that's the reason why I'm not hugely successful right now. They're always going to find something, so they have to fish, right? We see it all the time. Like, I wish I could remember something else. Like, they're constantly fishing for a reason to be angry. So in this, this is a reach, bro. You're right. You're 100% right. I just thought it was funny how you were just saying how rich she was when they never actually said she was poor. But I understand the concept. I see what you're saying. And that's my point, is that they just have to find something. If there's no grief, if there's no strife, if there's nothing to complain about, then there's no drama. There's nothing we can ask for. There's no attention on me. And then it's just up to me to be successful, I guess. Which it sounds like, even though she didn't have a helmet that fits, she was still able to do, because she ended up being a teacher. And I would venture to say, I cannot prove this, but I would venture to say that if some company out there started making helmets exclusively for black women or black men, I guess, they would be called racist, because it's a catch-22. It's always damned if you do, damned if you don't. Could you imagine if some company came out and said, we're making helmets for, unless of course it was, an approved
Black-owned business.
Yeah, an approved black-owned business. But if her mom, if she was adopted by a white family and her mom came out with a line of helmets for black girls with natural hair, which I'm not in a question. I don't know anything about. I don't know how different it would be. It would have a hole in the top so your braids could come out, or whatever it is. They would be immediately condemned as being racist or culturally appropriating. So it doesn't even matter, right? Even if you fix the problem, then they're gonna find a new problem, and this is just in the middle where they just have to find something to complain about, and it is really pathetic. It is. It's disgusting.
Well, it's a non-story, and they make it on the face of it. I mean, imagine you were doing my hockey gloves don't fit my large hands. Like, oh no, deal with it. And then this is, my hair doesn't fit my helmet in my expensive sport. Deal with it. And then this paragraph here completely blows out the racial argument. Isabella Tillman, who wears hair in her natural buoyant curls. So are you saying only black people have curly hair, and there's no non-black women who have curly hair that makes the helmets uncomfortable? Of course you can't say that. But they can't have this as the lead story. They took one of the opinions of the 12 girls they said they spoke to and made it about race. And then one of the women they speak to is 29. And I'm not going to feel sorry. I'm just not going to feel sorry for a 29-year-old Eric who says their helmet is uncomfortable in an expensive sport. And I guess here is what the United States Equestrian Federation says. It says it does not require its nearly 500,000 members to disclose their race, and only about half do so. Of those, nearly 92% are white, with black writers only making up 0.5%. So that's like I don't know, less than one of every 100 people.
Yeah, but so what, right? I mean, look, this one's easy because quite obviously, NFL, NBA, nobody complains. Nobody complains that there's not enough white people. Nobody complains that there's not enough Europeans, even though they seem to be taking over. The Joker and Luca, right? These European guys are basically taking over, and look, because the NBA is what, like 75 or 80% black. I mean, they can't keep
Probably.
using this argument and expect people, only 0.5%. So what? So what? Who cares? It's just it. I mean, it is what it is. There's another story I saw a couple days ago about how black people they're embarrassed to go to get mental health, and they don't want to talk to white doctors, and there's not enough black doctors. And it's just like, bro, you guys have to stop complaining about every single thing, but they won't.
They won't. That's a pretty succinct statement. He's Eric. Sue him for his racialized comments. The last story we'll get to here is keeping with some pop culture stuff today. Is DJ Envy, I believe, from is it the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, Angela Yee. You've probably seen Hillary Clinton be on them. You've probably seen a bunch of politicians and rappers and celebrities go on there. He gets offended sometimes. This Camel A. Harris. This guy, I've seen him get offended before. I've seen him get offended by two comedians making fun of his wife in a very vague manner. But it's
they
Angela
used to be
Yee
funny
this time.
too. Yeah, Jesus and Miro, who you're talking about, who are making fun of him, they used to be funny. They used to be. I mean, I have never seen a more transparent. Because I followed them when they were nobody, bro. Like when they had a little their own little YouTube channel. Getting maybe 1,000, couple thousand views, perhaps. I'm talking like almost a decade ago. And I have seen no more transparent transition from independent, like kind of, for lack of a better term, free thought, like stream of consciousness, almost like we're doing here, to completely establishment control hack shields. But it's not, I totally forgot about that situation. And it's not really about them, but of course the Breakfast Club has come up. I mean, look, they were good at the job, right? Like, I mean, they have dozens upon dozens of incredibly viral clips. Birdman going on there saying all three of y'all, and crossing his arms. Kodak Black wearing the ski mask. Kanye West yelling at Charlemagne the God. No, Kanye yelled at Sway, but Kanye and Charlemagne also had another thing. Charlemagne doing weird stuff when J-Lo was there. I mean, obviously Hillary Clinton, Kamalto, Dr. Umar, that weird kind of like, sometimes he makes sense, sometimes he's a black supremacist guy. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They were probably 97% controlled, and then 3% of the time Charlemagne would say something that actually made sense. And Angela basically claims that she was getting in trouble for the couple times that Charlemagne went rogue, and then went off into a tangent about how she was the only woman working on the entire show. Like, she was the only host. She was the only female host. But we're also told that we don't even know what a woman is. Maybe Charlemagne today can pretend to be a woman, right? So none of their arguments make any sense. And Yee is basically, she's leaving the show and she's trying to go out with a bang. She's trying to get some clicks on her new show. And nobody for one split second, I think, would believe. And she's also been called out by Lil Mama, by the way, which another incredibly viral clip of Lil Mama on the Breakfast Club. But
well, what did she
nobody
exactly
in
say
there,
here?
What did Yee say, or what?
Yeah, we haven't talked about what she actually said yet.
So she said that she was the only woman. She said to another talk show host that she was the only woman working on the show. And
You want to
DJ
read some
Envy
of
says
this?
that's not true. Okay. Well, can you scroll up just a... Actually, I have it pulled up here. DJ Envy has called out former co-host Angela Yee over claims she made about being the, quote, only woman working on the Breakfast Club during wait, now I'm reading from your screen. I'm reading from my screen. Sorry. During her time on the show. His statements came after Yee's recent interview on the Tamron Hall show began making rounds on social media on Friday, March 3rd. During the interview, Yee was asked about being held to task for misogynistic statements made by her male co-host on the show. So that's the first thing, is that she says she's the only woman and she's taking the blame for misogynistic statements, which of course, misogynistic statements is just anything that, if you say, oh, well, only women give birth, that could be considered misogyny, right? So that's just, that's in the wind completely. But my thing here is nobody in their right mind is going to believe that a powerhouse mega show in New York City, the flagship, for a time, rappers had to go there, right? Like now it's different a little bit with Spotify, but in the past 10 or 15 years, if you were going to have a career in the music, in the quote unquote urban, rap, hip hop, whatever, you had to go there. You had to get booked. Otherwise, your career was never really going to happen. So they were incredibly influential. And that mega show, nobody in their right mind is going to believe it took at least 24 people to run that show. At least. Nobody is going to believe that there was not one other woman on that entire staff. It's completely outlandish. We're talking about New York, where they come up with quotas. They come up with diversity hires. They do this stuff, just to wedge all of this diversity stuff in your face. Nobody in their right mind is going to believe that she was the only woman working on that show. She was the only female host, but you don't think there was a camera woman, a boom mic, a editor, something? There was definitely another woman on that show. And she plays the victim card. I read this. I did a video on this, so that's why I'm very, very familiar with the story. But she claimed also that, when you're the only woman in the room, it's very hard. And if there's no other women there, then they don't understand where you're coming from. And that's the card that they constantly play, right? Is if you don't have a uterus, you can't have an opinion. If you're not a doctor, you can't have an opinion. If you're not a scientist, you can't have an opinion. And that's what Yee is trying to do here, is I was the only woman, and when I was in a room with all men, they didn't know how tough it was. And look, yeah, of course, because she's admitting that men and women are different, which of course goes against the entire establishment narrative that they're not. So this story, it's pop culture nonsense, but I just hate to see these people constantly, and this does kind of tie in with the last story. It's just them looking for a victim card. Now, she probably has a little bit more of a reason because she needs to get clicks on her new show. So she's, throwing her old coworkers under the bus to get some clicks. But it's absolutely pathetic. It's absolutely despicable that this woman is insanely successful. For more than a decade, she's been a host on the show. She's not struggling, right? But she still has to complain about something. That's the point.
Did you see, to keep up with that sort of thing, did you see that the Toronto Raptors issued an apology for a International Women's Day, I guess, video that they made? So what happened was that and I see that my quality is bad on the stream. I'm sorry for that, everybody. I don't know. I've canceled the subscription to this platform.
Is mine okay?
Yours is good. I don't know why. It's this Canadian internet. Mine is coming in and out as I look at it.
You're hardwired, though, right? You're not on Wi-Fi. We'll talk about that later. Sorry.
That's right. So the Toronto Raptors here, and I'll bring it up now. They did a post for International Women's Day, and what they did is couple of their players said that women are the only ones who can give birth, which of course is illegal to say. We'll watch it right now, and we'll tell you what happened after.
Girls run the world because they're the only one that can procreate. They birth everybody. All women are great because they're all queens.
That was it, Eric. That was literally it. All women are queens. They're the only ones that can give birth. NBA Central reports, and I believe, is that an official account? Featured on ESPN Fox. It's not, but I don't think, but it's a quote from the Raptors organization. Raptors issue an apology for posting this video for Women's History Month. Our sincerest apology to our players, our staff, and our fans, and we'll work to do better today and every day after, because they said that only women can give birth. Let's play it again. It was pretty quick.
Girls run the world because they're the only one that can procreate. They birth everybody.
That's the point, Eric. They're the only ones that can give birth, and they birth everybody. These guys clearly are in a locker room. They've been playing basketball their whole lives. They don't have time to pay attention to the stupidity in the world. And they dared to say that, a woman's the only one who could give birth, and they give birth. Wrong, Eric Butler. Men can give birth.
Who actually
too.
complained about this?
I don't know. That's the thing. But for them to cuck like this, the Raptors have been doing great lately. I was going to watch them in the playoffs. I can't do it now. If you're going to rescind, your statement that women are the only ones that can give birth, as an organization, I can't support you. I'm sorry. There's other sports. Baseball hasn't let me down yet. There's too many guys from communist countries there. They didn't take the knee. UFC, I don't think will ever let me down. And soccer, sometimes I passively pay attention to that. There's certain people that kneel. There's certain ones that don't. There's certain racism that happens. Whatever, it's a world sport. But now the NBA, I was sort of, it's like, the whole year of BLM, the BLM season, the Raptors are doing good. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to watch them in the playoffs. And now I can't. Now I just can't, dude. I can't be like, oh, it's great. It's great of you that you said that you take it back to say that women are the only ones that can give birth. I can't watch hockey. Watch hockey. They have a diversity team now that says, everything should be transgender. I'm waiting for the next transgender Wayne Gretzky. I really am.
Well,
maybe Dwayne Wade's son will go to hockey.
Well, here's the thing. Like I said, who complained? It's not a basketball fan. Do you really think that it's a 30-something man who might be betting on sports, or just like a college athlete who did you know what I mean? A real hardcore basketball fan, somebody who actually played maybe organized ball, obviously not good enough to get into the league, but a real basketball player is sitting there like, oh, how dare they? No, somebody found this, just like Kimmel's people sifted through an NFL podcast to find something to be mad about. Somebody found this, and that's been a recurring theme of this episode. People have gone out of their way to complain about something, and they just shouldn't have. You don't celebrate Women's Month. How about that? You should have just ignored "quote unquote" Women's Month if you're going to pretend that a man is a woman, because none of these things ever line up with each other. They can't. They don't. But they continue to wedge. They continue to shove a square peg into a round hole, and it just doesn't work. And they think that you're stupid. And what Raptors fan is now like, oh, well, thank you for that apology. I feel so much better. I was going to buy season. I was going to cancel my season tickets, but now that you apologize, I'm going to go. Like, it's all absolute complete nonsense.
Well, it's the same thing as when that hockey player didn't come out for the Pride night thing. And it's like literally nobody cares, especially in a city like Philadelphia, who has some cutthroat fans. But I digress. And, another week in the books, Eric. We're almost at 100. We've got our new landing page up that everybody can go enjoy at uopod.com if they need to see where all of our links are. We've got our YouTube. You can even preview it on Spotify and YouTube, should you so want to. There's the last week's episode about Woody Harrelson. There he is, looking cool with your girl from Arizona. So uopod.com.
Cartel Katie.
That's right. I'm interested. We need to follow up on that, I think. We'll be back. We're going to get some guests for the next couple weeks, I think. Eric's going to come to Canada in, I think, 30 days or so. And we're going to have a lot more content. uopod.com, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. Subscribe. Give us that heart thing. Give us a review. Share our podcast on all the video platforms. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Eric, closing thoughts? What's your final thought, Jerry Springer?
Buy my book, New York City 2020 Gotham Unglued. It's still out there. It gets better with age. I promise you that. Relive that insane year that was 2020. It still haunts me. Go buy that. Amazon.
Turn it up, Jordan.